creating a report for a fictional organization of Van Hasdale. So the main interest of this particular report is that they're interested in seeing how their products are performing all over some countries, and also how they're performing against their top competitors. So they just want to see how they're performing against their top competitors, and also the products they have, how are they performing, the higher performing products in various countries. So we have a lot of data sets which are related to each other. So, but first of all, we have this Excel workbook. So this Excel workbook contains 3 sheets. So the first sheet is actually product details. So this is like a metadata of the products, where we have each particular product, its ID, its category, the manufacturer ID, which relates to the manufacturer, and also the price of that particular item. Yes. Then we also have the manufacturer details too, also, which just have the ID of the manufacturer names, and also the logo of the manufacturer, the URL to the logo of the manufacturer. They also have geographical details too, various locations with their zip code, their states, region, district, and country. Yeah. So this is one of the workbooks which we are going to be importing in Power BI. Then also we also have the sales. These are sales details that was made in USA. So this was for the country USA, the sales details that was made, the product ID, the dates that the sales was made, the zip code where the sales was made, the number of units of the item that was bought, and also the revenue made on that particular item. So then we also have for other countries, but this is only for one country, which I'm opening now. Under that data folder, you see a folder, international sales. So international sales contains 5 countries. I think it's Australia, Japan, Germany, Nigeria, and also one more country too also. So it contains 5 countries sales also, similar to that of the USA. So that other sales data is for the USA, why that folder contains the sales details of other countries. So these are the data which we are going to be importing and working with in Power BI.
Power BI, okay.
So now I'm going to be opening up my Power BI. So this is my Power BI desktop interface, which we are going to be working on. So the first thing now I'm going to be doing before explaining the interface is I'm going to be getting in the data. So you can see we have an icon here under our home tab, get data. So when we click on the get data, we have the common data sources which one can import data from into Power BI. Then we also have the more. The more allows us to be able to access other way of connecting to data sources. So such as connecting to cloud providers and things like that. So we have a list of various data sources which you can import. And for those also that work with Python and R, there's also a way which you can use your code to import it to also. So you can see R scripts and Python scripts. So it allows you to be able to import or load your data using an R or Python code. So these are various data sources. It depends on the organization one is working with, where they store their data, and also where they manage their data. So it depends on that particular place. Then you now import your data to that source. So Power BI makes it easy to access a lot of data sources, and they're also working on importing, on also giving more way of connecting to data sources. So currently now we have 2 types of data sources we're working with. First of all, we have an Excel workbook, which I explained earlier on, containing our products, manufacturer details, and also geographical location. So I'm going to be clicking on the Excel workbook. So I'm going to go to my desktop and go to data, then go to USA. So this is the workbook by dimensions. I will click on open to open it. So because the workbook contains more than 1 sheet, so we're going to have some of the list of the sheets as tables here. So clicking on a particular table, we're going to get a preview of this particular data. So because it's a preview, so I'm not going to be getting the list of all the data we're having. So I'm just going to be getting just some rows out of that particular data. So you can see the product table, the geographical data table, also have the manufacturer. So this is also a repetition. So I'm going to be taking this, and this. So I'm going to be working with these particular 3 tables. So we can either load it. So we load the data if the data is actually clean and doesn't need any transformation, but we can see we're having null values in some of our tables. So which means we have to clean this data and transform it. So I'm going to be clicking on transform data. So the transform data is going to open the Power Query editor for you. So the Power Query editor allows you to be able to clean and transform files. So more or less, you have a dirty file and you want to clean it, then use the Power Query editor before bringing it into Power BI. So before you load your query into Power BI, you need to clean it and transform it into Power Editor. And there are so situations where the organization has a vast amount of data. So let's say a particular data has going to a lot of columns or a lot of variables. And when you know the reports you are going to be creating, you're not going to be needing all those variables. So the Power Query editor gives you that room to be able to just fish out the variables which you need, or just the rows which you need, or filter out the rows of observations which you need. So I can also click on New Source Tool to import the other data, which is a flat file, a text CSV file. So that is the sales of USA. So also, we also have a preview of it before loading it. So the importance of this preview is just to see how your data is. Are you importing the right thing, or is there any problem with the data? Or maybe the data was misnamed. So from the preview, you can say, okay, this is the data I actually want to work with. Then the last is now going to be, the last is going to be the data of other countries, sales data of other countries. But the sales data of other countries are 5. So we can either import them one by one, that is by importing each CSV file, or we can just import the whole folder. So importing the whole folder makes it easier for us instead of importing each file one by one. So by clicking on New Source, then More, so this is the option where you can be able to import files in a single folder. So since all those files are already stored in a single folder, international sales, I'm going to be using the folder connector to connect to that particular data source. So now we are asked to give our folder paths. So I'm going to click on Browse and go to where this particular folder is. So which is on desktop, then instructor, then data, then international sales, then OK. So I'm going to click on OK. So now Power BI is listing, or Power Query is listing all the files that we have in this particular folder. So you can see all the files we're having: Australia, Canada, Germany, Japan, Mexico, and Nigeria. So these are the files which we are going to be, these are the other countries which Van Asdale also wants to know how their products are performing in. So we either transform this data or we combine and transforming it. Since their data are sharing the same column, so they have the same column heading. So we're going to combine and transform this data. So this is just like merging this data by rows. So we're going to be merging this data by rows. So we're going to have a single data. We are going to have a single data, and what is going to be classifying the countries is going to be another column of what? Country. So I'm going to click on Combine and Transform Data. So now combine and transform data. Now you can now see we're having a preview of all our data merged together by rows. So we can see Australia, and this is just based on first 200 rows. So based on entire data set, also allows us to view everything that I want to see. Then click on OK. So the Power Query editor has we'll call it 3 panes. So the first pane, which is by the left-hand side, is the queries. So all the queries which you have already run, you have already bring it to Power Query. You're going to be able to, you see the name of it at the queries pane. Then at the query settings allows you to set a query, either by seeing the properties of the query, which is the name, or also by seeing the steps you are applying on a query. So steps are what you have already applied, or transformations you have applied on a particular query. So for now, currently now, we can just see the 3 steps. We have the source, the navigation, and also change type. So which means Power Query automatically change a particular data type for us in this place. So first of all, now we have 7 tabs on our Power Query editor. So the home tab is where you see basic operations which you can perform on your data sets. Then we have the transform tab where you have icons which allow you to transform your data sets. So some of these icons are like transposing, reversing rows, creating pivot columns, or splitting columns. They also have the add column tab. So the add column allows you to perform a column operation, such as creating new columns or performing an operation in this particular or single column. Then we have the view. So the view is where you can also customize the view of your data. So you can check the column distribution of your data. So the column distribution is just how the values in a particular variable or column are distributed. Like for example, now based on this category column, now we can see we have 5 distinct value and 1 unique value. So a distinct value is actually a value, the number of values we have. So that's counted without repetition. So let's say we have five values appear in a column. So I'm going to count that particular value as 1. So currently now we have 5 distinct values. So which, if you click on this drop down, you can see all the distinct values we have. We have mixed, rural, urban, youth, and null. So null was also classified as a distinct value. Then we have what? 1 unique value. So unique value is a value that appears only once. So these are cases where maybe, for example, in indexing now 1 to 100. So we can call those, we can say we have 100 unique values because we know each number appeared only once. So the column distribution allows you to see such information. And also we can see in that of the product too, we have 919 distinct values and 838 unique values. So values that appeared only once. Then we can also check for column profiling. So the column profiling gives you, unlike the column distribution now, we can't know, let's say from the column distribution now, we cannot know the values that we have in this particular column. But when we click on column profile, we're able to see the profile of our column. But Power Query only shows you the top 1,000 rows. It gives you the profile of the top 1,000 rows and shows you data based on your top 1,000 rows. So which means for you to be able to see your whole data, you need to load it into your Power BI. But you can also get your profiling based on all your data sets by clicking on column profiling based on entire data sets. So currently now you can see we have 2,412. We have 2,412 rows. But column profiling based on top 1,000 rows shows us information based on only the top 1,000 rows we were having. So this is what column profiling just allows you to do. So you want to see the values which you are dealing with. Now we know that yes, we are dealing with urban, rural, mixed, and youth values. Then the next is the column quality. So the column quality allows you to check how quality is your the quality of your column. So let's say, are you having valid values in your column? Are you having empty values, or are you having errors in your column? So you can see now currently, because we have not cleaned this data, we're having in that of the category, you have 3 valid values, which is that we have 3 valid values, we have 0% errors, and we have 97% empty values. So these are the kind of information one can get by owning the column quality. So I'm going to off this for now. So now I'm going to start by transforming the products table. I'm going to follow it one by one. I'm going to follow the queries one by one. So the first thing I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be double clicking on the product table name, call it products, or I can just rename it to also directly from this here, from this place, products. So now the product ID, this is our product ID, and the product ID, we can see an icon by the next to the name product ID. So this is where it shows us the kind of data type this column is. So if the data type is not in an appropriate data type, we can change that data type to another data type. By clicking on that icon, you are able to see, okay, this is the data type that I'm working with, or these data types I have available, or I can be able to change to another data type. Then we also have the products column. So the product column currently now is joined with the product name and also the segment's name. So we need to split this particular column. We are going to split it into 2. So we are going to be having the product name, and also we are going to be having the segments. So we can either split this column by right-clicking, then go to split column, then click on by delimiter. So a delimiter is what separates 2 words together, and currently the delimiter we have now is the pipe delimiter. So I'm going to be removing this hyphen and putting the pipe delimiter. So the pipe delimiter allows us to split this column now into 2 based on this pipe delimiter. I'm going to click on OK, and we're going to be having 2 columns. Now the step I already applied now is already showing in the applied step. So you can see what splits column by delimiter. So if I click on this crosshair, I'm able to remove the step I've already applied. So you can see it has already go back to the way it was before. So now I'm going to, earlier on I used the right click to go to it, but the main icon is actually under. So we go to transform, go to transform tab, we click on split column. So you can see by delimiter, we're going to be splitting by the delimiter. So just the same operation, but different way of accessing it. So either use your right click or go to the transform column. So now I'm just going to rename this particular column to products. I'm going to rename this column, why this is going to be the segment. And also we're already okay with the data type which you have currently. So we already have this as a text data type, which you can see it here, text, and this is also a text. So we're okay with this particular data type. And also if you want to access the segment we have, you can click on this drop down, then we're able to access the segments. But you can see that because it is only loading the top 1,000, which means that there are other segments which Power Query hasn't shown you. That's why you can see we're having a warning, list may be incomplete. So if you want to access all the values in this particular segment column, so just click on load more. So by clicking on load more, we now have a list of all the values which we have on our column. Now the next column we have category. So when the person that was actually importing the data, so just gave the category of a single, it just gave the category of a single item and left all those other and left all those other values under it as an empty value. So then the next category, rural. So which means all the values here, all the values that we are seeing here, they are both what? Mix. So then the next we have rural, and any null value under rural are what? Rural also. So which means, but we cannot analyze this data like this in Power BI without removing these null values and actually giving them the appropriate values of mix. So we can say we can use find and replace, but we have to take note that not all the null values are having the same value. So which means that null values after mix are having a mix, null values after rural are rural, while null values after urban are urban. So in this situation, what we are going to use here now is under the transform tab, we're going to use the fill down. So the fill down allows you to fill null values under a given value by that particular value. So by clicking on fill down now, all these null values are going to be filled by the value above it. So you can see now that we're having mix, we're having all the null values under mix to be mixed, all the null values under rural to be rural, and all the null values under urban to be urban. Then also go to the manufacturer ID. We also have no problem with the manufacturer ID. And we can also check from the column distribution. You can see all the column profiling. Okay, let me check quality. So we're also okay with the manufacturer ID. Then we also go to the price. So now the price now, because we'll be making analysis on the price. And the price is in alphanumeric format. So you can see the currency in USD, while we also have the numeric value. So when this is going to be a problem for us, when we take it into Power BI, let's say we want to be making analysis or making calculations on the price. And also you can see the data type is in text format. So we have to do something here by splitting this particular column into two. So we're going to be having price in one column, and we're going to be having currency also in another column. So earlier on, you can use the method earlier on, which is to split by delimiter. So but we also have another method called creating column by examples. So creating column by examples allows Power BI, Power Query to automatically detect a column. So you go to your add column and you click on column from examples. So when you click on column from examples, you have a window open up like this, which allows you to give an example of the column you want to create. So let's say, for example, now, I want to just pick these particular values out. So I want to create a column, but without USD. So I'm just going to type in the name 412.13 and type enter on my keyboard. So automatically the Power Query detects that, okay, I'm interested in creating a new column, but without this USD, following the numbers.
Behind it, yes.
Yes, exactly. So I can now rename this text after delimiter. I can rename it to MSRP. Then I can now click on OK. So you can now see that I've already created a column from this price column using column from example. So the same thing too also I can apply, want to bring out to the USD also. So I can just type USD and it's going to bring out USD for all the, it's going to bring out USD for all the rows following it. So I'm also going to name this to currency. So since I already have the currency now and the price splitted, so this row, this column becomes redundant. So I can right click, then remove this particular column. So I now have the MSRP, which I can rename back to price. Then I also have my currency. I also have my currency column. So now all the steps I've already applied in transforming this particular data. You can see all the steps now listed in this place. So removing one of these steps is going to give you a warning that, okay, you're going to try and break a step. So it's possible that some steps are dependent on another steps. So mostly it's a good practice when removing steps. Maybe one starts from the latest steps one already applied. So some steps are dependent on a step, and removing this particular step can break all other steps following it. So this lists all the steps already applied currently on this particular table. So the next table now we're going to now is the geography table. So this is our geography table, and currently now from looking at it, we have the wrong column names. So the column names we're supposed to be having is in row 3. So this is the columns that we already have. But for us to be able to give this, for us to be able to use this particular row as our column, we need to remove the redundant rows which are there. So we can see row 1 and 2 are redundant rows. These are rows which we don't need. So we are going to go to our home and click on our remove rows. So remove rows, we are going to be removing the top rows. So, and the top 2 rows which you don't need are 2. So I'm going to type in the number 2, is the option, and click on OK. So you can see now that we already have the redundant rows removed. So now this row 1 that we have now, we want to make it as our column name. So I'm going to click on this particular row 1, and under our transform group, we are going to see use first row as headers. So this allows us to be able to use a specific row or our first row to be our column name. So I'm going to be clicking on that, and we already see we have our column name. And all these steps are applied are already shown on under the applied steps. Now, one thing with zip code is that we'll have left the zip code as a numeric value. You can see that the zip code is carrying a numeric data type, but we'll have left it as that if some locality are not having alphanumeric zip code. But we have localities that are having alphanumeric zip code, and this is likely to be a problem for us when we load these queries into Power BI. So I'm going to click on this particular data type and change it to text. So it tells us that we want to replace the current or add a new step. So we want to replace the current step. So we're going to be replacing it, and it's going to convert all the zip codes we're having in this particular column to text, which means that zip code that are starting with 0 are going to be shown. Because as a numeric value, zip code starting with 0, the 0 is not going to be shown there. But if we have zip codes that are starting with 0, when we convert it to text, it's going to be appearing. So we also have the city column, we have the states column under this geography table, we have the region, we have the districts, and we also have the country. So we are done with the geography table now. So we're going to rename it to geography. So we're already done now with the geography table. So now the next now is the manufacturer. So the manufacturer now also, we have a problem similar to what we have in the geography table, just a little bit of addition. So our column names are not what we want it to be. And also you can see that the names that even we want as our column names are row names instead of, they are appearing on the rows, not on the column. So the first thing now we have to do now, we have to remove redundant rows. So we can either remove, unlike the previous method, which I used to remove top rows, or we also have another option called remove bottom rows, which I can use to remove these 3 rows. But I can also keep the top rows. So they're both working the same way. It's just based on what you feel like using or what you want to use. So if I keep the top rows, I'm going to be keeping row 1 to 3. If I remove the bottom rows, I'm going to be moving row 4 to 6. So I'm going to use the keep top rows. I'm going to be keeping the top 3 rows. So by removing the top, keeping the top 3 rows now, I've already removed the redundant rows in this particular query. So now I'm going to transpose this matrix so that I'll be making these row names to be column names. So I'm going to transpose the matrix. So I'm going to transpose it. So by transposing it now, I already have my row names to be column names. Then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to be making this as
first row as header.
First row as header. Yeah, right. Good. So we're already done with this particular query now. So I'm just going to name this M to capital M, manufacturer. Then I go to sales. So before going to the sales, we'll go to the international sales. When we are merging the international sales, we have a redundant column here, source.name. So we don't need this column. We're going to be removing this particular column. We remove it. So the international sales contains sales of various countries. As we are seeing, Australia, when we click on this arrow, we see the countries that we have. So because the data is big,
large, yes,
it is large. Yeah, it's going to be taking a little bit of time.
Okay,
you can see Australia, Canada, Germany, Japan, Mexico, and Nigeria. So these are the countries that we're having their sales details for. Then the next is that of the USA. So it's not going to be making sense for us to be having these two data, or we'll say it's not going to make our work efficient to be having these two data saying the same thing in different tables. So what we want to do now, we want to match these two tables together. So we're going to be matching that of USA to match, we're going to match that of USA with that of other countries. But also, you can see that for that of the USA, we don't have the country, the column called country. But first of all, let's merge it to see what is going to happen after that. So we're going to click on the sales, which we're already on it. Then we'll click on append queries. We have three types of merging in Power Query. The first type, we already did it, was when we merged various files together, which is this combined files. They also have append queries, which allows you to be able to join two queries by their rows. Then we have merge queries, which allows you to be able to join two queries by the column. So if you have two tables together by the column, you want to join it, use the merge. If you have two tables, you want to join it by the rows, use the append. So I'm going to be using the append queries. So now it's telling us you want to concatenate two tables or three or more tables. So what we want to do right now is just two tables. We want to click on the drop down. Then it's international sales that I'm interested in. Then okay. So this is one of the problems of large data sets.
Yeah.
So I think it should be done by now. Yeah, it's done.
Okay.
So now, because of the reason why we're having null values here is because we don't have a column country in that of the sales. So the column country was in that of international sales. But when it's now merged together, it just gave it values of null. So it is our work now for us to convert this null to USA. So we can either use a find and replace, or we can use a conditional column creation. So we can create a conditional column. So I'm going to be creating a conditional column by clicking on this column now and click on add column. So I click on conditional column. So it allows us to be able to create a column based on condition. So I'm going to be calling this country, this column country name. So what we want to do now is that, okay, if based on this column that we selected now, that is country, if the value null, if the country value, that's if in a specific row we have a value null, then the output should be
the name of the country.
Yes, exactly. So what if in the situation where we don't have null values, then we are going to just return the initial value in that particular column. So which is, if it is Australia, just return Australia. So we're just going to return the initial value, then okay. So now we're already having USA there. So we don't need this particular column. We're going to be removing it. Then also we need to change this data type to be text. We change it to text. So now we can see that we already have okay, so now all our countries are already there now. We already have USA and other countries. So this is better than just loading the tables or the queries side by side and having different tables containing the same information. So also we go to our revenue. So we're going to be changing the data type of this revenue to be in fixed decimal number. So this is just like a currency format to allow PowerBI, when we load to PowerBI, to automatically detect that it's a currency. They also have units. We are okay with that. And also our zip we also need to convert it to a text because of zip codes having alphanumeric values. So this is going to be a text. Then for the dates, we are going to be working with the previous 3 years. So I'm just going to click on this drop down and date filters. then in the previous. So I'm going to be selecting in the previous 3 years. So then, okay, so I'm going to be having what? 2020 till the current date, then also the product ID. So because we already have the international sales data appended with the sales, so we don't want this to be loaded into our Power BI model. So I'm going to right click on it and off the enable load. So this is going to show the query and italics format, showing you that okay, this query is actually in your Power Query, but will not be loaded into Power BI if you want to load it.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So I think this is all for the transformation of this data, transformation of all the data we're going to be working with. So the next is going to be loading it into Power BI and start exploring it to see insights which we have, then start creating a report. So this is what we're going to be taking in the next class, which is going to be tomorrow, God's willing. Yeah, so I'm just going to be loading this now into Power BI. Click on close and apply. Okay, so now I've already loaded the data now into the Power BI model, into the Power BI. So we can have a preview of our data here. So here now you can see the number of data you have. And for the sales, you can also see the number of data you have and also others. So in the next class now, I'm just going to be exploring the data. I'll also be explaining the creating relationship between these tables and also how we can now create visualization and reports based on these particular tables that we're having.
All right, thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, is there any question now? Sorry, let's take, if you have any question that want to take or comments.
For now, I don't think I have a question.
Okay.
The steps are pretty much explanatory and very simplified for me. I wouldn't know about, yes, for me, I wouldn't know about other people too.
Okay.
Yes, but it's pretty much straightforward. And I like I love how he takes his time to carry the process along. There's one thing to know, there's also one thing to be able to teach another. There are two different things. Some people know, some people do not know how to teach. But I think Mr. Ridwan did justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. That was really awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I'll hand over to Ridwan now. If to round up, then we'll stop the recording. Thank you.
Okay.
So I think that's all. I'm just going to be saving this file for our next class.
Okay.
We're going to save it as a desktop. We're going to save it as so I think that's it.
Okay.
So I think that's all. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right. So I'm hoping to join up tomorrow by 10 a.m. again.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right.